If you want it, Las Vegas has it. Crazy weather, wild lawsuits, spectacles galore, all of that almost every day before we even finish our first cup of coffee. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, I'm joined by food and justice advocate Kim Foster and our executive producer Sonia Cho Swanson to discuss the toll our record heat is having on basically staying alive in the city, a scandalous lawsuit against the champion Las Vegas Aces from one of their former teammates, and the Sphere adding sound to the outside light show, but not everybody is happy about it. It's Friday, August 16th. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Sonia, Kim, welcome to the FNR.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. And FNR stands for Friday News Roundup, a little insider talk over here, just sharing it with the whole audience.
Right.
So before we get into the news, let me ask you, did you all feel the earthquake?
No.
We apparently had a minor biggie or a big minor. Did you get that?
Seemed pretty small. I don't know.
Okay, so there's been like over a 4-point earthquake from California or Nevada for the last 4 weeks. There's been several.
Oh, really?
So are you just used to it now? You're like, oh, I just get a little dizzy sometimes. Or,
I
the
didn't
earth is rolling.
feel this one, but people did. I saw it. People were on Twitter saying they felt it. I didn't feel it.
I think people live for that moment where they could be the first to go to Twitter. It's like, did everyone feel that earthquake?
Yes.
Was that an earthquake? Did everyone feel that? I'm the first one to post that. Did anyone feel
This
that?
is honestly the only thing that I use Twitter for these days is to be like, was that an earthquake? They should just turn Twitter into was that an earthquake app?
Yes, it's perfect. It's like, because it's so immediate.
Yeah, well, nature is no joke, which leads us right to our first story. Sonia, tell us about, the heat is always a story every Las Vegas summer, but this summer?
Brutal. Yeah, pretty brutal. So the county coroner's office released some preliminary numbers on Tuesday. And what we're seeing is that it looks like heat-related deaths have doubled this summer compared to last summer. And again, this is just for the summer months, not the entire year. We had 123 related heat deaths this summer versus 63 last summer. And when they talk about heat-related deaths, they're not just talking about somebody who's just exposed to some extreme sun on a hike. It's also when heat is a complicating factor in something like, a stroke or drug use, methamphetamines. Some prescription drugs can also make you more vulnerable to the heat as well. This comes on the heels of a New York Times article that came out earlier this week as well. Did you all see that one about nighttime heat?
No.
Oh, I'm already completely freaked out about daytime heat. Come on, bring it, Sonia.
Yeah, bring the mood even further down. But the New York Times released an article earlier this week about how nighttime temperatures are actually heating up faster than daytime temperatures. What's scary about that is that you need the nighttime to cool you down because that's when your heart gets a little bit of a break. When it's really hot during the day, your heart's going into overdrive, pumping blood around your body to cool you down. But if the night doesn't cool down, then your heart is doing that work in overdrive.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Obviously, we can't control the weather. But what can we control when it comes to minimizing the deadly impact of these record high temperatures that Las Vegas is experiencing?
Okay, so I compiled a list of some things that we could be doing better than we are, okay? First is we only get cooling centers when there's an excessive heat warning. So unless the National Weather Service issues an excessive heat warning, there are no cooling centers in Nevada.
Could you break down really quickly what a cooling center is and who it serves, Kim?
Yes. So a cooling center is a public place that is advertised where anyone can come. They can get out of the heat. It could be in a church, it could be in a community center, it could be in a nonprofit.
Library.
Anyone can go. You don't have to show ID. You just go in. You can relax in the air conditioning, have a glass of water. There's probably some other cooling elements in there that people can do if you're like having like really having like an emergency reaction. And those places tend to get ramped up when we were seeing those really big temperatures in July. But in general, they just don't exist. And so this also may be a case of the Las Vegas government needing to step up a little bit. Like, for instance, there is no single agency in the state that's tasked with heat mitigation strategies. It's sort of dispersed among lots of agencies. And so basically there's no real consensus or a sort of concentrated effort to manage heat for people.
Can I jump in on that real quick? Because
Please.
the Review Journal article I was reading about these heat deaths actually quoted a retired physician who founded this organization called Nevada Clinicians for Climate Action. And this Dr. Leovi was like, why don't we have, this was her proposal, why don't we have a chief heat officer, which apparently Los Angeles, Miami, and the state of Arizona all have. That's interesting, right?
That. Yes, I love that. It needs somebody to be focused on it because it's sort of like because there isn't an agency or a person, because there's no heat czar. We need to call them
heat
a czar.
Czar.
The heat czar.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing idea. That's an amazing idea.
I mean, look, we are a valley that is ever growing. More and more people are coming here. More and more people are coming here who may not be used to this level of heat. We're developing to the boundaries and beyond the boundaries of what anyone who was here 10 years before or 10 years before that or 10 years before that could even recognize. I wonder if in this heat story, if our population growth and development aren't the secret villains here that are making things worse. Am I way off on that?
Well, I think it's part of the problem, right? When you get more cars on the road, when you have more buildings and asphalt being built, you kind of increase the intensity of that urban heat island effect. But I think that there are still possibly ways to grow without intensifying those effects. If, for example, we could get cars off the road with more people coming into town. If, for example, we could build more climate-friendly housing in dense urban areas that were also cooled by greenery. So I don't think it's necessarily like an either or, but a how. And I don't know that we have the how to grow without getting hotter yet.
This is that old sort of Vegas thing where we just decide we want to do something that's really cool, but then we don't think about the infrastructure that's required to have that thing.
Yeah.
This is what it feels like. Like, we live in the desert. We should be the people who like introduced the heat czar. We should be the people who created that, right? Like, that should be front of mind. So for instance, and here, this heat czar idea is really cool, Sonia, because like one of the things I was thinking is we need somebody who can go into and discuss legislation, during political season. So for instance, like right now, Nevada Energy can still shut off your energy if for non-payment in the summer. Like,
wow.
I think there's some hardship exceptions to that. Like, I think there
are
is
some programs.
qualifications that they don't, just turn off for non-payment. But you do bring up a good point, Kim, in that a lot of people are very dependent on keeping that AC running. And a lot of folks who are on fixed incomes, when those bills go up, or if you have a landlord who maybe isn't the best at fixing that air conditioning unit when it breaks down, and especially with our senior population, there doesn't seem to be a coordinated effort in our city to make sure that no matter what, during these brutal summer months, that people are in safe AC situations. And I wonder if, you went through those coroner stats, how many were, again, like elderly people or very young or vulnerable people who died because their air conditioning unit was out for an extended period of time. Because, Kim, you and I have talked about this. There are people who have to choose between letting the air run and getting their medicine, or letting the air run and getting food.
Look, there are tons of people, and I have friends people that I actually know that do make that choice every day. Can we afford to turn our air conditioning on today? Now, that is, to me, air conditioning in the desert is not a luxury. It is not like a privilege. It is like you need to have that.
It's a
even
medical
if you
necessity.
set it really low,
Yeah.
right? Like even if you set it low, you need to be able to like have some relief, even in like one room or something like that, right? And we know that there are people who make those choices every day. Every day.
It's interesting. I mean, Las Vegas is clearly, and let's just say scientifically, getting hotter and hotter. So pardon the pun, Sonia, does there come a time when there's a boiling point and we just give up on our city?
You mean like straight up sci-fi apocalypse, like get up and leave town, ghost town Vegas?
Like we look at each other and we say we're lobsters in this slow broiling to death place. We need to bug out.
I mean, maybe, but I also kind of think we'll probably start doing things like moving underground first, right? Like I feel like the economic engine of Las Vegas is chugging along steadily enough that there's going to be a pressure point at some point where they're going to, I'm being an optimist here, David. Come on. We're going to put up giant sunshades and sun sails. We're going to have misters that cool the entire
I'm just
city.
Thinking of a future where one mole person turns to the other mole person and says, did you get up ground today? Yeah. How was it? Well, I lost it all on 26 Red, but I'm back.
But I'm back.
Isn't this just going to make our winter even warmer? That's what I'm thinking about. Like summer may be interminable, right? But once we get past that, we've got 9 months of like pretty awesome weather, and we might actually have warmer winters. Not that this is good. I'm not advocating for like the decimation of the climate.
Kim is pro climate change, y'all. Spread the news.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Also, fact check, if you bet 26 Red on roulette, you're always going to lose because 26 is on the black space. So to our future mole people, don't be a sucker. Don't be a sucker.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, another story in the news. The Aces, the World Championship Las Vegas Aces, they are standing by Coach Becky Hammon in a pregnancy discrimination lawsuit. Kim, can you explain what that's about?
Yes. Okay, so Los Angeles Sparks forward Dearica Hamby filed a federal discrimination lawsuit against the NBA and her former team, the Las Vegas Aces, claiming that they treated her unfairly when they found out that she was pregnant. According to the lawsuit, Hamby signed an extension with the Aces in 2022, and 3 weeks later, she realized she was pregnant. She claims that she told her coach, who's Becky Hammon, and other members of the team's staff about the pregnancy. And everything was cool. Everybody was fine. She kept playing for the team. She helped the Aces win the WNBA championship.
Mm-hmm.
And then she came out and yay! Yeah. And then she came out and told the public.
She came public during the celebration, like the parade, right? Wasn't that when
Correct, yes.
Yeah,
she totally like celebrated.
I'm winning for me and for my baby.
Baby.
Yay! Hamby said after she went public, she experienced notable changes in the way she was treated by the Las Vegas Aces staff. She claimed she was told she had to leave team housing without explanation. And in January, she was asked if she planned her pregnancy. When she said she hadn't, the coach allegedly told Hamby she was not taking proper precautions not to get pregnant. Hamby says her coach questioned her commitment to the team, whether she'd be able to play in the next season, and called her a question mark. Hamby was like, look, no problem. I'm giving birth in the odd season. I'll be fine to play in the fall when we come back. Within weeks of the phone call, Hamby was traded to the Sparks. And so there is some validity to this because there was a WNBA investigation, and they decided to suspend the coach for 2 games for violating workplace policies. And of course, the coach is swearing that it's just a business decision. So that's where we are. So I'm going to throw this one to Sonia because, and I don't think I'm sharing a secret here that no one knows about, or maybe I am. Am I sharing a secret that the audience
Just
doesn't
go
know
for
about?
it. Just go for it.
All right.
Go for it.
No trade secrets here.
Sonia's pregnant.
I am.
Very pregnant. Okay, so Now that you are, let's put you in the mindset of an athlete
Ooh.
and being pregnant.
Uh-huh.
What does this feel like to you?
Gosh, I honestly, I spent several hours last night thinking about this story. A lot of thoughts going through my mind right now. I think, first of all, pregnancy is kind of a uniquely vulnerable time. You've got a lot of new things to learn, a lot of like changes that are happening in your life. And on top of that, thinking about taking mat leave, I'm not going to lie, look, it makes me feel a little nervous, despite the fact that I have an incredibly supportive team. I have, this is a company that is supportive and encouraging of women taking mat leave.
Yay, CityCast.
Yay, CityCast. Yeah. But at the same time, like there are still thoughts at the back of my head. Is my company going to realize while I'm gone for 3 months that they don't actually need me? Or will I fit back in when I come back in, 3 months or next year or whatever? And I think it speaks to the general vulnerability that women across the workforce, across like all countries experience. So we know, for example, that women leave the workforce in droves after giving birth. I think there's something like a 24% loss of women from the workforce after childbirth. We also see, and this is again across all countries, including those, developed European countries with their really progressive mat leave policies, that a woman's earnings plummet at childbirth and never recover. So mothers make 63 cents to the dollar that every father makes. 63 cents. And this is called the motherhood penalty. It's something you can actually look up. And that gap, like no matter how much longer you're back in the workforce, there's always going to be that gap for the rest of your career. So those are the thoughts that are going through my mind right now as I think about like, how is this going to change my life? I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm not saying I'm not excited, but there are some things that like, women, I think, face and think about when it comes to work and pregnancy.
Well, and this is a really high profile case for our city. Kim, what was your thought about it?
Well, just listening to Sonia talk. And then if you think about what Sonia's fears are and the things that she thinks about, and she has a job in which she doesn't have to be super physical. Sorry, I know there's probably some physicality involved, but a lot of your work is brain work.
She has to lift our spirits, and sometimes those can be a little heavy.
Now that is heavy lifting sometimes.
Okay, that was actually really quick. Well done.
Yeah, David.
Well done. But just listening to Sonia have these like real concerns that she has thought about, and she works for a company that's very supportive. And then you think about being an athlete, and that really ups everything, right? Because, I mean, this is a woman who participated in the season and helped them go on to win a championship while playing pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, do you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I wonder how many athletes really struggle with this in really significant ways that mirror what you were saying, Sonia, but are maybe even more enhanced because of the physicality of their jobs.
Something that I found really interesting in reading about Dearica Hamby's case is that even if her pregnancy could theoretically impact like her performance at work, I will say she gave birth in March of 2023. A month later, she was at training camp with the Sparks, and she played for all 40 games of the Sparks season. All 40, okay? So even if, like, of course, pregnancy can have complications, but people get injured too, right? There are all kinds of reasons why a player might not be at full peak physical form. And let's just point out that Hamby, despite, having given birth literally a month before, was showing up to training camp.
To me, this all comes down to, the fact that women's sports, and especially the WNBA, are finally blowing up. And these kind of lawsuits, which might not have been taken as serious when there wasn't as much at stake, are going to be probably happening more. I just wonder, is this a good thing for women's sports to kind of be involved in this type of litigation?
We can't say like, okay, they've reached the big time now because they're getting like big time lawsuits. But I mean, they just don't. There's not any kind of equality in terms of compensation and things like that in the NBA. And so, this are 2-time champions, back-to-back champions. I mean, these athletes are friggin' incredible. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
like, I guess you're right. I guess now that they're like in the big time, there's going to be some like big time things that happen. But, these
Because I
women
think
need to be.
it would just be kind of shuffled under the table, like it'd be like, sorry, sorry, you can't play here anymore, go somewhere else. And then they go somewhere else and nobody really, they kind of have to take it. But now that it's so much on the public, like, conscience.
Also,
Mm.
politically, there's been a lot of talk about birth
Mm,
Mm.
and what birth means and what motherhood means and who is a mother and
Mm-hmm.
all these things. And I think that we care about these things. No matter where we are on the political spectrum, we have an opinion about these things now, too. And I think that feeds into these kinds of attention on these lawsuits because, like, Sonia really cares like what happens in this lawsuit because she's, going through this thing. And I certainly
Mm-hmm.
care because I've carried babies too.
Mm-hmm.
And, and we think about these things and now they're being pushed in our face also politically, like various sides. And
Yeah, this is actually making me think like why, I mean, the WNBA is why can't they create some kind of structural support for teams who have pregnant players? So right now, I think what the
yes,
Aces argument is that they traded Dearica Hamby so that they could get 3 more bodies on their team. It was purely a financial decision because they have these things called salary caps, right? They're only allowed to pay so much out to players, and they just needed, more bodies, is what they were saying. But like, let's say if, for example, Dearica Hamby had not given birth in the offseason, let's say she had given birth during the regular season itself, why couldn't the WNBA offer some sort of program to teams to be able to, for example, bring in, I don't know, a rookie or maybe like adjust their salary cap for the year? Or like, why isn't that structurally an option so that teams don't feel like they're between a rock and a hard place if that was the thinking behind their trade,
you're right.
in
There's
the
no
first place?
policy.
Yeah.
In women's basketball, in
Yeah.
a professional league, there's no policy. There's
Yeah.
no
And
there's
all
no
these,
procedure.
What I'm hearing from both of you is that with all the success of the WNBA, that, they should become a bastion of feminist innovation and
Yes.
disruption to the old system that wasn't fair to women. And what better place than Las Vegas, which is, like, frankly, known for its exploitation of women in a lot of industries. There are a ton of women-dominated industries in our community. I'm wondering if lawsuits like this, and maybe the WNBA in general stepping up, would be good directly for this city getting a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Equitable?
Thoughtful?
Yeah. So many other WNBA players are watching this case right now and wondering what they can do with their futures too.
Mm.
Oh my God, that's so true. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Everybody's watching, right?
All right, moving on to our last story. Well, the instantly iconic Sphere is in the news because what can't that building do? Apparently, be really loud without pissing off some neighbors. So I think unbeknownst to anyone when they first built the very light forward structure, that they also had the capacity to make it really frickin' loud.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah, no, me either. It's strip adjacent. I think it's hard to not know where the Sphere is, but it's just east of the Venetian Hotel, which is a little closer to some residential areas than people might realize. That said, back on 4th of July, they ran sort of a test soundscape outside, and apparently it was really super loud. There were no rules in place. The decibel levels, according to Sphere management, wound up going a little louder than we thought that they would, and a little later than we thought they would. And some nearby folks in I'm going to presume an expensive-ish high-rise,
Okay,
were
one of those schmancy condos.
Yeah, Park Towers, a high-rise apartment complex
Okay.
nearby. They were freaked out. I think they knew that it was coming, but they didn't know exactly what it was going to be. And then it kind of hit them really hard. And, their windows are shaking. And I'm presuming their dogs were double unhappy on 4th of July.
Huh.
Anyway,
Oh my God.
this started the discussion, and so the Sphere has to get permission to exceed the Clark County noise limitations. And the limitations are about the decibel level and when they can be heard. And typically across the valley, 10 o'clock is kind of the cutoff when, because
Yeah.
people need to get up in the morning and go to work, and loud noises are counterproductive to that.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the process works is the county is going to ultimately vote on whether or not the Sphere can do what it wants to do with sound on the outside. But it first had to go through the Paradise Town Advisory Board. And as that name would suggest, merely an advisory body. And that body...
It's not the city council of
It's
Paradise.
not, no, yeah. I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast so much, just the craziness of the municipality and the designations. But there is a
Lord.
Paradise Town Advisory Board, and they give advice to the county, which may or may not choose to follow it. And in a 3-1 vote, the board allowed the Sphere to emit loud noise all the way up until midnight on 18 occasions throughout the year. This upset the residents of Park Towers. They felt that the process was unfair to them. Where have I heard that before? Everywhere. That they weren't given the opportunity to address some of the quote-unquote falsehoods that the Sphere was saying about the negotiations. Apparently, the residents of the tower and the Sphere were talking about, like, how many times a year and how loud it will be, et cetera, et cetera. I guess the final decision is going to be in the first week of September. And so that means a cap of noise at 87 decibels, which I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's your head right next to a blender.
Here's what I got a chart. I got a chart for you guys. Okay.
Okay, go
so
do the chart.
The chart says that a telephone dial tone is 80 decibels. The sound of city traffic from inside a car is 85 decibels.
Okay.
And a train whistle from 500 feet away is 90 decibels.
Oh.
So it's
So
not
it's
going to
nothing.
like
That doesn't
bust your
sound that
eardrums.
bad. Now, that's according
Yeah.
to the RJ, is that it's capped at 87, but apparently the people want it to be even lower.
Yeah. So
Huh.
for example, a motorcycle or a snowmobile is 100 decibels. So you're not
This is now
you're not
confusing to
quite
me.
at that level.
I guess 87 decibels, like in your house. That
That
would
would
be
suck.
bad if it sounds like in your house there's a motorcycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Wait, can we just clarify what the noise is? Is it music? Is it...
I think it's just a combination. I don't think it's just, like a bat screeching. I think it's something that goes along. I think it's something that goes along with the visuals.
Nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
God.
think it's something that goes along with the visuals, presumably music-based or music
Sure. Sound effects. I'm
Sound
sure if there were
effects.
fireworks, they would do fireworks sounds or something.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, okay, got it.
the,
Okay.
the
All right,
whistle
got it.
of a
All right.
firework and the explosion, that sort of thing.
But I'm sure it could also be annoying, like a commercial, right? If it was like a commercial on the Sphere,
Well, I mean, that was one of the things that the advisory board members said is like, last time you came here and you were telling us about the visuals, you said there'd never be commercials. Guess what? How do I even trust you
There are
people?
commercials.
Yeah, there's a lot of commercials. I guess the question is noise that big a deal when you consider how loud the Strip and the Strip adjacent areas already are?
Well, I don't know how you feel about this, David. David and I live pretty close to this Sphere. Part of my thought here is that if you're going to move close to the Strip is going to be in your life. That's how we looked at it when we moved in. There's going to be bright lights. There's going to be fireworks. There's going to be special events. There's going to be traffic shutdowns. There's going to be all kinds of things. And you either have to embrace that or like move to a suburb, right? Those are my feelings about that. Like, we live in a city, and city things are going to happen, like noise and things like that. So my general view is that everybody needs to suck it up. That's my...
All right. Now, I want to hear what Sonia has to say on this, and then I'm going to throw you a curveball, Kim. But I need to hear from Sonia first.
I kind of am in Kim's camp, and maybe because I feel like the Schadenfreude of having not chosen to live near the Strip. Like, you get the hand that you were dealt, or you opted
you get
for,
the
I
hand
guess.
you were dealt.
Right, which is, I mean, you opted into this game, I guess,
All right.
right?
Are you both ready for my curveball?
Okay, curve
so
away.
In the story, we just hear who's complaining. It's the people in the high rise that it's interrupting with their lives. What about the people who are one block further east on Twain in the dailies and weeklies who have been living there for years because they don't have any other options. We're talking there are slews of Siegel suites just half a block from where this high rise is, and other housing that is touted by many to be, the only entry housing that people can afford for decades now. Their voices weren't even heard. I don't even know. I'm sure they have thoughts about it, but they weren't solicited and they weren't part of the story. They weren't at the Paradise the Paradise Town Advisory Board. Should they just be having to suck it up because they're poor people? Kim Foster.
I'm really glad you said this because I hadn't really thought about that. And you're absolutely right. And it's very common in mixed income neighborhoods that poor people are often left out of the conversation and often have different needs and desires about what they want to happen in their community than people who are privileged. So I think your point is right on that we need to ask them. Now, in terms of does that change my opinion, it doesn't, only because I don't know what those folks would think because no one has asked them. And they could feel differently than the people in the towers.
Yeah. I mean, they could say it's only 18 times a year. We could live with 18 times a year. It's not like it's every night.
Yeah, right. I think that limitation of 18 really does change the dynamic for me. But the other question I think you're introducing here is a question of agency, right? Like the wealthy folks, we assume, have the agency to choose to live elsewhere, and they choose to live in this fancy high-rise apartment next to the Strip. Do the folks in the low-income housing have the agency or the choice to choose to live elsewhere, I guess, is the question.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Your curveball was a very good curveball.
That was a good curveball.
That was good.
Nice one, David.
It is still the Sphere. It is, as I said, instantly iconic. It's an important part of the Strip now. So maybe begrudging them a little bit of innovation to keep, in the public eye isn't so bad. So I guess let's leave it with this then, on maybe a cheerier note.
Okay.
What new feature would you actually be okay with the Sphere getting away with if they added something else?
All right. I have an idea.
Go.
What if during the most stressful times of like rush hour traffic, the Sphere just emitted soothing noises and essential oils and just kind of like exuded
aromatherapy Sphere.
Exuded
what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, Kim.
Okay, so mine is Sonia's, only taken in a much different direction.
Okay.
I think the Sphere should punk people with smells in the way that Bean Boozle, that candy where you like get a candy, but you don't know what it's going to taste like. It could
be
like
the Harry Potter candy,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think you should be walking along and then like a fart smell comes out and then like roses, and like and maybe there's like a game where you can like guess what the smell is, there's sort of, so my thing is like to disrupt. I want to disrupt.
See, now for me, if the technology was available, I would like to see the Sphere morph into other geometric shapes. I would let them do that. I would give up on calling it the Sphere and just calling it the Blob or whatever, and it could become a cube or a pyramid. But speaking of that, like understanding that technology probably isn't anywhere near, I would not mind if the Sphere decided that it was going to start engaging in friendly pranking with other casino with casino property. Kind of like the spicy Burger King or, that like kind of like trolls a little bit of McDonald's and Wendy's and whatnot. And I've said this before on the podcast. I want whoever programs the Little Darlings billboard to get headhunted by the Sphere and start getting a little cheeky over there.
By the way, if that person is you or you know that person, please reach out to us. We would love to talk to the person behind.
Here's the secret is I know one of the people who does that.
You know who it is?
I know a person who was at least at one point on the team who did some of the Little Darlings
we want to talk
advertising.
To
you. Okay,
right.
Those billboards are brilliant. They brilliant.
Are amazing.
Brilliant is an overused word in society, and this is a prime example. Kim Foster. It is.
Nope, I'm in Kim Foster's camp.
Oh my
God.
They are brilliant. I was trying to come up with a better word.
Nope, David, they're brilliant.
You're driving by and then you see, and then you look, and then it's something so sassy and in your face.
They're
It's the best
audacious.
thing ever.
I'm going to go as far as audacious. I don't know that I'm going to go with brilliant. But I will apply the word brilliant to one, Kim Foster, and one, Sonia Cho Swanson, who were fantastic guests on today's Friday News Roundup. Hey, both of y'all, thank you for joining us on the FNR.
Happy to be here.
Thanks, y'all.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. Our producers this week were Sonia Cho Swanson, Layla Muhammad, and Natalie Rivera. Our newsletter editor is Rob Couchel-Reese, and our roving newsletter editor this week was Adrian Gonzalez. Our hosts are Sarah Lohman and me, David Figler. Music is by OG Moose, Epidemic Sound, and All the Kimonos. We record this show on the traditional homelands of the Nuwuvi, the Southern Paiute people. If you enjoyed the show, go tell a friend. Also, rate our show. We love those 5 stars. Go to Apple, do the 5-star. It takes a second. Leave us a review, too, and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Las Vegas. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky.